Should I start? Good morning, everyone. It's been a pleasure to host you this weekend. My name is Rena. I'm one of the head students here at BSB. And I have the privilege of having the first speech, which is good because you can't really compare me to much. So today's theme is Voices That Matter. And generally, I do appreciate what this theme is trying to bring about. But I think it has certain implications that make me question some things, like, are there voices that don't matter, and who gets to decide what matters and what doesn't? So today, I'll be discussing three things. The first one are the voices that we never heard. The second are the voices that are silenced. And the third are the voices we refuse to let matter. Now, I made this speech thinking that we'd have a few more people, to be honest, in the room, but I ask two things of you. The first thing is I'll be asking questions, and I'd like some audience participation so that I don't look like an idiot on stage. And the second thing is every time I clap, I would like you all to say voices that matter together. So can we practice this together? Ready? Voices that matter. Perfect. Thank you. First of all, the voices that were never heard. So, who knows what the oldest university in the world is? Yes?
Oxford?
No.
Salamanca?
No.
Toronto?
No. So, yeah? No. So it's actually the University of El Qarawiyyin in Fez, in Morocco. And who do you think is the founder of this university? I'll narrow it down for you. Is it a man or is it a woman? Someone guess.
A woman.
It is actually a woman, which seems a bit unexpected. Her name is Fatima El-Fihriya. So this is a story that how many of you have heard before? None. Okay. And that's because this is one of the many examples of stories that we never get to hear. But their voices do in fact matter. Over the last year, I had the privilege of being able to do an EPQ. And if you don't know what an EPQ is, it stands for Extended Project Qualification. It's essentially a research project. You do it for about a year. You write a 6,000-word dissertation. And I decided to do mine on how the MSF and ICRC operate healthcare amidst conflict in Sudan, which is a very loaded title, but I was basically looking at healthcare in conflict zones. And while doing this research, I had to look into the political realities in Sudan right now. And I'm very grateful that now Sudan is getting a bit more media attention, but at the time, barely anything. All we had were statistics. And one of the statistics that really harrowed me and kept me up at night was there were 11 million internally displaced people in Sudan. 11 million. And I think when you think of that number, it's a bit dehumanizing. Statistics, you don't really get to feel the story in each one of those people. So for context, I decided to compare a little bit. So 11 million people is 6.5 times the population of Bucharest. 11 million people is 6 times the population of Warsaw. 11 million people is 8 times the population of Prague. 11 million people is 37 times the population of Timișoara. And 11 million people is 73 times the population of Marbella. That's a lot of people. Here today, we have 8 people telling their story and saying this speech, but we don't get to hear the voices and the stories of those 11 million people. So they received minimal coverage. We don't really know what's going on. And this is one of the many examples throughout history of voices that we never got to hear. But the voices that matter, their voices do in fact matter. Voices that are silenced. I originally wanted to title this as voices that were silenced, but it became very clear to me as I was writing this speech that there are voices that are still actively not heard. Many oppressed groups, ethnic minorities, women, disabled people, people that are displaced or in conflict zones, never get to have a platform to share their story. There have been a record number of active state-based armed conflicts since 1946, as of 2024. Can anyone guess the number of armed conflicts? What I'd like to do is everyone stand up. Sit down when you think this is the number of armed conflicts at the moment, okay? 2, 3, 4, 9, 11, 23, 30, 41, 42, 49, 50, 53, 54, 60, you were all wrong. It's 61. 61 active state-based armed conflicts. And how many do we really know about? 2, 3, 4? I mean, even if you keep up with the news, 61 conflicts, I don't even know which areas in the world these 61 conflicts go. These are voices that are silenced. Many people are suffering around the world, and we don't get to hear why, because of certain agendas. Often, the media attention focuses on the big wars, the ones that are geopolitically strategic, but not about the smaller ones, the ones that, in the media's opinion, don't really matter that much. Silenced voices are often those who don't serve geopolitical interests or don't align with powerful narratives, but they are voices that matter, yes. Now, the voices that aren't allowed to matter. In the world, we have deep structural inequality in whose stories are allowed to be told and whose stories aren't. You have to question the power dynamics here. Who defines what matters? Historically, global institutions from the media, politics, finance, these were all dominated by wealthier, more powerful countries, the ones stereotypically in the global north. Priorities, pain, and aspirations of the global south have been overlooked for millennia. Narratives that do make it to the mainstream are often looked at through a very Western lens, something that fits the narrative of those large media companies. This results in systemic silencing. The global south is talked about, but never really listened to. But they have voices that do matter, yes. I'd like to give you a very obscure analogy, a very obscure metaphor now. In chemistry, we have a concept of entropy. Entropy is a measure of disorder in the universe. Naturally, the universe does tend toward disorder, and I think the most perfect example of this is your bedroom. The beginning of the week, it might be clean, and by the end of the week, your clothes are everywhere, your bed isn't made. Unless you are putting in the effort, you're creating systems, you are creating a habit of continuously trying to clean and improve your room will tend toward disorder. We learned a lot of skills this weekend. We learned how to become great leaders. We learned how to manage teams. We learned how to listen to each other. It is up to us to put in the effort in the world that is currently tending towards disorder, with a rise in conflicts, with a rise in poverty, with a rise in climate injustice. It is up to us, the future generation, to put in the effort, to put in the skills that we learned this weekend and stop this disorder. We need to become the change we want to see in the world, as cliche as it sounds. Voices that matter are stronger in unity, which is why I have asked you guys today to say it all together. So let's do it one more time. Voices that matter. Because I truly believe when we are united as a front, as a human race, on one very lonely planet in an ever-expanding universe, we start to realize that, yes, we all bleed the same red. Yes, we are all human, we are kin, and that we should serve each other's interests. Remember, your voice matters, my voice matters, but so do the voices of the ones that we never heard, the ones that were silenced and are still silenced, and the ones that don't really matter. We are the future. We are the ones that get to control the future and the world. So please, let's stop the disorder, let's stop the natural entropy, and let's be the change that we want to see. Thank you.
Our world has never needed courageous voices more than it does today. The 10 times that our generation is currently facing requires powerful leaders to step up more than ever. Being a leader in today's time is not just about your age, your experience, or your title. Being a leader is about having the necessary ability and courage to speak up when it matters the most. In a world that is more divided than ever and full of hatred, the question we must ask ourselves is very simple. How will we choose to use our voices? Let's shift our focus to a more global perspective for a moment. All across the world, young individuals are constantly demonstrating that courage does not wait around for adulthood. From students taking part in climate strikes in order to try and make a difference, or teenagers using their skills to create online platforms that allow unheard communities and minorities to be noticed, the voices of the young are driving conversations that adults once believed we were too young to start. The actions and movements started by the youth once again remind us that leadership is not about authority, it is about impact. And an impact is being made when somewhere, someone decides that keeping quiet is no longer an option. Our generation is already making an impact by shaping the world, not by speaking the loudest, but by refusing to be ignored. You might wonder why some people are hesitant to speak up. Quite often, it isn't about them not having the right ideas, or perhaps the passion. It is because fear gets in the way. It is the fear of standing out when it feels safer to blend in that causes many to not use their voices. Some hold back due to the belief that their voice won't be noticed or that someone else will speak up in their place. That is why I urge you to challenge these doubts and make your voice heard to those around you. It is at the moment we choose courage over comfort that we create space for change to begin. I believe that leadership is not measured by how loudly we speak or by the authority we have, but by how deeply we listen to the voices of others. A true and genuine leader pays attention to the quiet voices in the room, the voices that are filled with ideas, but perhaps too hesitant to speak up. As emerging leaders in a rapidly changing world, it is our role to lift others up, to invite them to contribute, and to show them that their voice can change the direction of a team, a community, or even an entire generation. As I stand here today, I wish to remind you that our voices are far more than just words. They are the instruments of change. Each and every single one of us has the power to make a change and to inspire others. And as we return to our daily lives, to our schools, or to our workplaces, I want you to carry a message. The world moves forward when ordinary people choose to speak with courage. Thank you.
Thank you, Vlad. Now we have Sasha from Aloha College in the round of applause.
Greetings, ladies and gentlemen. Today, I'm Sasha, and I'm here to make a speech about voices that matter. However, I will be asking some questions, but I don't want you to answer them. I want you to think about it. I want you to reflect on your own life and be able to imagine if this has ever happened to you. I want to start off with a quote. And it goes by, "Our lives begin to end the day we become silent about the things that matter." I want you to think, don't answer, just think. Who is this quote by? Okay? I am going to now tell you who, I'm going to give you a couple of helpful suggestions so you can understand who he is. First of all, I'm here to talk about voices that matter, but specifically that when there's a problem, like an injustice that happens, I want you to report it. Because, for example, the person that I'm talking about, right? He faced major discrimination because of his color. He had to deal and struggle with a lot in his life just because he was a different color than someone else. This was a century after slavery was abolished in America, actually. But still, people were discriminating against blacks just because they had a different skin color. Nobody stood up. Nobody said anything for a while, just because people were scared to voice their opinions, because they were scared they were going to get discriminated against. They were going to get tossed in jail, which happened in America, just because you wanted free rights. The person I'm talking about is Martin Luther King, or MLK for short. He started off as a normal black person. He was a pastor and a teacher. He just wanted a peaceful life. He never wanted to become a leader, in fact. However, due to certain circumstances, the Montgomery bus boycott, he was forced into a position of leadership because of it. However, this was because of his traits. He had the traits to be able to push himself out there and be able to help and voice the problems that happened. I want you to be able to voice your opinions like him about any injustice that happens. Because if you really reflect back on your life, how many times have you let something happen just because you felt like it wasn't your responsibility? It just feels like everything we do should benefit us. Because why would we want to get mixed up with other people's problems? Right? Seems like simple. However, if you really think about it, that one person really needs your help. If you just speak out, if you help them out here, you will do them a great favor. Because we don't know what they're struggling with. If, for example, like Martin Luther King, they get discriminated against, it's awful for them. So I just want you to voice your opinion against injustice. Please. Because every single small voice matters. Yours. Because even out of 1 million voices, that million would not be possible without you. I'm just here to talk about voices that matter because I feel like I really hate when people discriminate against people. I chose Martin Luther King, or MLK, because he really resonated with me. I really hate people that just judge based on a certain color or a certain appearance. It just feels wrong to me. So, just like MLK, I hope you have a vision to improve the future, to help people out, and to voice your opinion, because if you don't speak up, no one else can speak up with your voice.
Thank you. Now we have Anastasia from Academia High School.
We live in a world that's never been louder. Every day, millions of people compete for a few seconds of attention. On screens, in conversations, in classrooms, in politics. Everybody's speaking, but fewer people are listening. And that's strange, isn't it? Because we were taught that being loud means being heard, that leadership means speaking up, taking the stage, commanding attention. But maybe the problem today isn't that people don't have voices. Maybe it's that too few of us use them for something that truly matters. When I first saw the theme of the speech, voices that matter, I started thinking about all the people whose voices have shaped me. And honestly, most of them were never the ones with a microphone. They were quieter. The teacher who noticed when someone in class seemed off and asked the simple question, "Are you okay?" The friend who didn't just tell me what I wanted to hear, but what I needed to hear. The person who didn't just say the right things, they lived them consistently when no one was watching. Those are the voices that stay with you. Not because they were the loudest, but because they were the truest. Of course, speaking with authenticity isn't easy, especially when you're young, surrounded by smart people in a world that rewards sanctity over reflection. I remember a time when our headmaster announced we were no longer allowed to leave the school during the day. As you can probably imagine, the community felt frustrated. We resented the fact that some of our autonomy was taken away. Everyone talked about it privately, in hallways, group chats, whispers. But no one wanted to confront the authorities. We worried. What if they don't take us seriously? What if we make it worse? What if we lose face? Eventually, a few of us decided to speak up, not to confront, but to understand. We arranged a meeting, shared our thoughts calmly, listened in return. Nothing revolutionary happened that day, but in a few days, the ban was lifted. And that's the first lesson I learned about voices that matter. They don't need to shout. They just need to show up consistently with honesty and intent. But here's where it gets harder. Once you find your voice, leadership is about using it, not for yourself, but for others. And that's the real test. We talk a lot about finding our voice, but rarely about what comes next, what happens after we've been heard. Because using your voice isn't about winning argument, it's about opening doors. It's about creating the kind of space where other people feel safe to speak too. And that's what separates noise from meaning, echo from resonance. Anyone can talk. Leaders listen. This matters even more in international communities like ours. Diverse, multilingual, full of perspectives shaped by different stories and habits. Here in this room, every accent tells a story. Every viewpoint carries a truth that another person might have never lived. Real leadership is about learning to listen across differences, to hear not just the words, but the experience behind them, to admit that your truth is not the only one, and to lead from that humility, not from ego. Because when we really listen, we stop competing for attention and start connecting for purpose. So what does it actually mean to have a voice that matters? It means using your voice to serve something larger than yourself. It means being consistent when it's easier to stay quiet. It means transforming empathy into energy, turning awareness into action. Voices that matter don't fade when the lights go off. They live in the decisions people make afterward, in the trust you build, the courage you spark, the silence you help others fill with their own words. As we leave Bucharest and return to our schools, our cities, our routines, that's what I hope we carry with us. Not just inspiration, but intention. Not just confidence, but curiosity. The will to ask, who isn't being heard in my space, and what can I do about it? Because when the noise dies down, what stays isn't how loud we were. It's how we made others feel seen. So let's make sure our voices don't just echo for attention. Let's make sure they resonate for impact, for empathy, for change. Because voices that matter don't chase applause. They create understanding, they create courage, they create futures worth listening to. And that is a sound that never fades. Thank you so much.
I think we will take a quick 5-minute break, because I can see some of you are getting up to go to the bathroom in the middle and things. Could we make sure if we do need the bathroom, we all go now, please? So 5-minute break, bathrooms, bottles in the bin, that's Right, we'll just let everybody. Okay, have we got everyone back? Yeah. Right. Well, we now have Anna from English College Prague, so can we give it a round of applause?
Ladies and gentlemen, fellow student delegates, honorable teachers and supervisors, I would like to start my speech today with a quote. And it goes like this: "There is really no such thing as the voiceless. There are only the deliberately silenced or the preferably unheard." This is a quote from Arundhati Roy, who is an Indian author, a political activist, and to me, a very, very inspiring character. I chose to build my thoughts here today around these words because they do not merely remind us of something, as most quotes tend to do, but they challenge a myth most of us find comforting, a myth that there is such a thing as the voiceless. No, Roy highlights something much more disturbing. The question is no longer who has a voice. No, no, no. It goes much deeper. The question now is, who are we willing to entertain, acknowledge as valuable, and allow to matter? We often talk about people who are for whatever reason voiceless. But Roy said, nobody is born voiceless, but voices are taken away by not listening. Think about the moments in history where societies were transformed, movements for civil rights, struggles for independence, or scientific revolutions. None of those movements were launched by those lacking a voice, but those whose voices were at first ignored. Yet they kept speaking. They kept putting themselves out there. And the world eventually realized that their voice mattered all along. But voices that matter are not exclusive to history, as some of you may think. A voice matters when a child finally says, "This is who I am." A voice matters when a friend admits, "I need help." A voice matters when a person speaks up against discrimination, even in a small room of people, but with big consequences. A voice matters when an artist paints a truth on the wall that no one can avoid. A voice matters when someone refuses to let cruelty be normalized. A voice matters when a student asks a difficult question others are not willing to ask. Voices that matter are everywhere because they choose to stand out of the crowd and be honest about issues that need addressing. Yes, I think all of us here know full well that using our voice can be difficult, even frightening. It is hard to stand out knowing that staying in line is much more comfortable. But remember this, every meaningful change in the world began with someone who was afraid but spoke regardless. After all, courage is the decision that something deeper is important than one's fear. And that something else is often another human who needs our voice to matter so that theirs can. So to not be self-centered, what does it mean to let another's voice matter? It means listening before responding. It means respecting perspectives different from your own. It means recognizing the humanity behind every story. It means amplifying those voices that were dismissed for too long. And it means understanding that silence is a choice with consequences. And it also means refusing to treat someone else's experience as background noise simply because it does not resemble our own. When we choose to let our voices matter, we expand the boundaries of our community. We widen the definition of us. We strengthen the society we live in. But there is one voice we often forget to include, our own. Many of us have been taught, directly or indirectly, that our voice doesn't matter, that our thoughts aren't important enough, that our feelings aren't valid enough, that our experiences aren't exceptional enough to deserve attention. Your voice matters not because it's perfect, or because it's poetic or powerful. Your voice matters because it is yours, because it carries a story no one else's can. You have a perspective shaped by your struggles, your joys, your hopes, your contradictions, your wondering, your becoming. And the world is always poorer when people decide that their voice is irrelevant. So let your voice matter. Let it matter in conversations that are uncomfortable. Let it matter in decisions that drive your future. Let it matter in friendships, classrooms, communities, in moments of injustice. And just as importantly, let other people's voices matter too. Open doors for them, make space for them, invite them into the circle. Treat their experiences as real, their perspectives as valid, their presence as meaningful. Because when more voices matter, we build a world where fewer people are preferably unheard. So as we leave here today, I want to offer you this. Be the person whose voice matters and the person who makes others' voices matter, a leader. Speak with courage, listen with intention, act with integrity, and remember Arundatero's truth. There are no voiceless people, only those who we have yet chosen to hear. Let's choose to hear them. Let's choose to value them. Let's choose to ensure that every voice, including yours, truly matters. Thank you.
Thank you. Now we have Ria from the British School of Visual Arts.
So, good morning, everyone. My name is Riyad, and I'm with the British International School of Timișoara. And today, I want to talk to you about something that feels so obvious, yet somehow it still gets overlooked. The simple, beautiful truth that all voices matter. And I know, maybe, you're thinking, well, of course they do. Isn't it the whole point of community? But if all voices truly mattered in practice, would so many people still be fighting just to be heard? When we talk about voices, we're not just talking about sound. We're talking about stories, identities, pain, resilience, dreams, and the quiet dignity of simply existing. And yet, somehow, some voices are treated like background noise, always there, always present, but rarely acknowledged. This is especially true for marginalized communities whose experiences are frequently filtered, diluted, or dismissed. Think about the people of Gaza, for example. How many times have we been told statistics instead of stories, numbers instead of names? So let me ask you something. How do we decide whose voices become important? Who gets the megaphone of global attention? And who gets to whisper their suffering politely? And more importantly, why do we accept this as normal? All voices matter. It means we don't get to choose comfort over truth. It means we don't get to tune out the voices that challenge us, unsettle us, or push us to comfort our own complicity. Sometimes the most marginalized voices are the ones carrying the most profound clarity. They are the ones who understand survival, endurance, and the heavy cost of being ignored. Communities living through oppression, displacement, or conflict, like families in Gaza, aren't just asking the world to listen. They're asking the world to acknowledge their humanity in a way that is consistent, compassionate, and unfiltered. When will we understand that we all bleed the same red, and you, the people of this room, including myself, and the people that are watching this live stream, just won the geographical lottery? But here's the thing. Amplifying marginalized voices isn't about guilt. Isn't about charity or favoritism. It's about balance. It's about creating a world where dialogue isn't monopolized by the powerful, but shared with the vulnerable. And maybe you're wondering, what difference does listening make? A huge one. Listening is the beginning of dignity. Listening is the birthplace of change, and listening transforms silence into narrative and narrative into action. When we genuinely listen, we give people something invaluable, recognition. And recognition is a form of justice for communities who have been overshadowed by conflict, and were politicized rhetoric. Having their truth heard is not a luxury, it's a necessity. And if we ignore them, What kind of society are we building? One that only hears what is convenient, or one that only values voices that mirror our own? Let's be honest with ourselves. It's easy to say that all voices matter. It sounds nice. It feels harmonious. But the real question is, do we actually structure our world like we believe it? Do we engage with perspectives beyond our bubble? Do we challenge misinformation, bias, or the dehumanization of people we've never even met? Do we pause our own narratives long enough to let someone else breathe? If not, then the phrase is just decorative. All voices matter. An elegant slogan without substance. But we can give it substance. We can choose awareness over apathy. We can choose to uplift voices that have been buried under rubble, censorship, and prejudice. And no, this doesn't require heroic acts. It requires small, consistent shifts, asking better questions, refusing simplified narratives, and acknowledging painful truth. And most importantly, recognizing the humanity of those whose experiences differ from our own. So tonight, actually this morning, I ask you, what would our world look like if all voices truly mattered? What injustices would we stop tolerating? What suffering would we no longer allow to be normalized? What stories would shape us into wiser, braver, and more compassionate human beings? Maybe the real power of this idea lies not in the phrase itself, but in our own willingness to live it. Every voice has something to teach us. Every voice carries a piece of the world that we have not seen. And until we honor them all, especially the marginalized, the silenced, and the unheard, we cannot claim to be building a just or empathetic future. All voices matter. Now let's act like it. Let us carry this commitment forward, refusing silence and choosing empathy every single day. Now, as I have both Palestinian and Syrian blood in me, this topic was a bit hard to talk about, but in the end, I'd like to thank you. Thank you for giving me a voice to represent the silent ones.
Now we have Georgie from Aloma College.
Hi everyone, my name is Georgie Verinder, and I am from Aloma College, Marbella in Spain. Today I'll be talking about something that cannot be seen, but we carry around with us, our voices. Not necessarily the ones out loud, like you probably are all thinking, but the ones within us, since in my opinion, it's the one that truly matters. Our mind is the most powerful part of our body, controlling how we act, speak, and most importantly, how we think. Our internal dialogue has a large influence on our emotional state and confidence, and then our bodies react accordingly. Everyone has both good and bad thoughts, ones that uplift and cheer us up, and ones that bring us down and belittle us. I'm sure all of us here have been through periods of times where our bad thoughts have taken control, making us feel judged, criticized, and worthless. This is very common and happens on a daily basis. Some ways to get these out of our heads is by doing mindfulness activities or engaging ourselves in things that make us feel happy and positive. Over 1 billion people worldwide live with a mental health disorder, for example, depression, anxiety, or stress, showing how much our brain can impact us. So if our mind is so powerful, why don't we spend more time understanding how it works? Lots of research has gone into understanding the negative thought cycle, such as cognitive behavioral therapy. This is designed to help us become more aware of our thoughts and challenge them, recognizing what we're thinking in order to try and change it. So instead of telling ourselves, I'm not good enough, I will fail, change it to something like, I'm finding this challenging and I don't understand it yet. The word yet is very powerful and tells us that we might not be there right now, but we will if we keep trying. Furthermore, I'd like to talk about Mel Robbins. someone who lived her entire life with crushing anxiety due to her ADHD, but didn't get fully diagnosed until the age of 47. She was able to come up with a way to help herself, and now many others, with a technique called the 5-second rule. The 5-second rule helps with negative thoughts by interrupting them before they take control of your mind. She suggests that when you notice a negative thought you come into your mind, you immediately count down from 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and then take immediate action. For example, when you get up in the morning and you're unmotivated to go to school since you have a test that you don't think you're going to pass, and you're not going to do too well in, she recommends to count down from 5 to 1 and take immediate action and get out of bed. This interrupts the negative thought loop and allows us to take control back by taking positive action. And research shows action builds confidence. So how well do you know your internal voice? My advice to you would be, if you're struggling or feeling low, maybe check in with your internal voice and what it's saying. This is because evidence shows paying attention to those negative thoughts and switching them to more positive can really help. And lastly, I'd like to thank the British School of Bucharest for giving us this enriching opportunity and allowing me to have this wonderful experience, and thank you all for listening.
Thank you. Now we have Jasmine from Academia High School.
Imagine waking up to the sound of sirens. You open your eyes, and the world you once knew, your home, your school, your city, is no longer safe. You grab what you can carry, a phone, some clothes, maybe a photo. You run. You don't know where, you just know that you need to survive. For millions of Ukrainians, this isn't imagination, it's memory. Since the 24th of February, 2022, their lives have been divided into before and after. Before the war, they had ordinary dreams, jobs, exams, birthday plans. After the war began, survival became their only dream. And yet, in all the noise of global politics and media headlines, the most important thing of all, their voices, are too often drowned out. When we talk about voices that matter, we're not only talking about the loud ones, the leaders, the politicians, the commentators. We're talking about the quiet ones too, the voices that break, that whisper, that tremble, the ones that tell the truth of what it means to lose everything and still hope. Voices that matter are not always amplified by microphones. Sometimes they speak through tears or through a broken accent or through the silence of someone waiting at a border with nothing but a suitcase and a story. The refugees who fled Ukraine did not come seeking pity. They came seeking safety, but when they arrived in Poland, in Romania, across Europe, many were met with something even more powerful than shelter. They were met with listening. When the first wave of refugees began crossing the border into Poland, the world watched in awe. Ordinary Polish people, families, teachers, shopkeepers, students, opened their homes, schools, and hearts. Railway stations became shelters. Kindergartens became classrooms for Ukrainian children. Entire communities mobilized overnight. Poland didn't just open its borders, it opened its ears. It said to the people fleeing the war, "You're welcome here, you matter here, your voice matters here." The act of listening, of saying, "We hear you," is what transforms a refugee into a human being again. Because when you have lost your home, your belongings, and your country, being heard is the first step to rebuild your dignity. But not everyone listens. Around the world, refugees often face suspicion, resentment, or political debate. They are talked about far more than they are talked to. And when we stop listening to those who are suffering, something dangerous happens. We begin to forget that they are people. Numbers replace names, statistics replace stories, and humanity, the very thing that should unite us, begins to fade. We must remember, behind every refugee statistic is a voice that once sang, laughed, and argued about what to cook for dinner. Behind every tent in a refugee camp is a story of a teacher, a child, a grandmother, who once lived a normal life and is now fighting for the chance to live again. Why do these voices matter so much? Because they tell us who we are. And for Poland, these voices have already changed something profound. In welcoming millions of Ukrainians, Poland has shown Europe and the world what compassion looks like when it's lived, not just spoken. It has proven that empathy is not weakness, it is strength. It is the strength to see someone else's pain and still open your door. Let me tell you about one of these voices. Her name is Natalia. She's an 8-year-old girl from Kiev. When the bombs began falling near her home, she packed the little things she managed to take and ran with her mom. A week later, she crossed into Poland, carrying only a backpack and a teddy bear. I met this little girl and listened to her story. I listened to the viewpoint this 8-year-old child had on war. That's what happens when voices are heard. New stories begin, new communities grow, new hope takes root. But as war drags on, attention fades, headlines shift, and the danger isn't just bombs or politics, it's forgetfulness. We forget that the conflict continues. We forget that people still flee every day. We forget that refugee is not an identity, it's a circumstance. So the question is not just how we can help, but how we can keep listening. Because to stop listening is to let silence win. And silence in the face of suffering is complicity. We can all do this in small ways, by volunteering, by donating, by supporting refugee-run businesses, or simply by asking someone their story. Because the moment we listen, we give power, and the moment we care, we create change. If there's one thing that the war in Ukraine has taught us, it's that tragedy does not erase humanity, it reveals it. It shows us who will turn away and who will step forward. So, when we speak of voices that matter, let us remember, it is not power that makes a voice matter. It is truth, it is empathy, it is the courage to speak and the willingness to listen. Every person, whether in Kiev or Krakow, whether behind a border or behind a language barrier, deserves the chance to be heard. Because when we listen to the unheard, we do more than just hear their stories. We rewrite our own. We become a world that chooses compassion over indifference and unity over silence. And that, more than anything, is what gives our voices power. Thank you.
We'll take a break. Okay, I think we'll take a 10-minute break. Okay, coming back here in 10 to 2, please. Okay? just going to give everyone a minute to come back from the bathroom. We're going to have the office silent for a minute now. Let's wait for the bathrooms to empty. Why did you all move from the front row? Like,
Yeah.
At least I have enough time to do the 5-second rule now.
it's going live by the way. We're just literally waiting for these guys because otherwise we're going to hear all of that. No pressure.
Someone want to run in and get them out? Go in the door and shout them out. We're just waiting on you lot.
So hard.
That you all out?
One more.
No, we've got one more.
Sorry.
Okay, right.
We are now going to hand over to Aria from English College.
Before we start, I would like to tell you a little story that happened to me at the start of this school year. Basically, like every other year, we got a new student in. And he was kind of quiet, he didn't say too many things, and we didn't talk much at the start. But about a week ago, we were put together in the same period during PE lesson, and we started chatting a little, we had a little conversation, and I realized that this guy that I didn't know anything about was this super intelligent, super talented guy that did around 10 sports and was national champion in most of them. Then I got thinking and realized that today we still would have been strangers if we didn't have that conversation. And all of this because he didn't use his voice to paint a picture of himself that truly reflected who he is as a person. Words and how we use our voice has tremendous impact on how people around us act and how they see us. On this occasion, the only consequence of him being silent was that it took me longer to get to know him. However, sometimes not using your voice can have an even greater outcome. For example, our voice is our best weapon against prejudice and injustice. To not use it, to prevent it, would be cowardly. Gandhi once said, "Silence becomes cowardice when occasion demands speaking out the whole truth and acting accordingly." I'm going to repeat it one more time so you can understand the gravitas of this quote. Silence becomes cowardice when occasion demands speaking out the whole truth and acting accordingly. Now, of course, my friend wasn't acting cowardly because he was more silent than others. That is completely okay. But when you look at the bigger picture and understand that not saying something can actually mean that a conflict breaks out or that no one knows about an issue that is very close to your heart, that is cowardly. It is cowardly to think about your own insecurity when you know what you have to say can save someone's life. It is cowardly to stay silent when you know someone is hurting someone. Most of us are born with our own unique voice and our own personality and our own ideas which we express. And we can share this openly and use it to state the truth and act according to it. But some people aren't as lucky as us. Some people are not as fortunate as we are and cannot share their own views freely. And even though they want to speak up and they want to stand strong, they cannot. Censorship, prejudice, and social pressure can silence important voices that would be otherwise tremendously important and insightful. That is why it is so important that we, those that can speak, and those that do speak clearly, speak for those who cannot. I'm not saying that it is easy. You need incredible amounts of courage to speak up and make yourself heard. But you have to. You owe it to those who cannot. This ability we are so lucky to have. One's voice should never be less important or less contributive than another's. But collaboration of voices is what brings the best outcome. And remember that for those who cannot express their own opinion, there is always someone else that dictates it for them. Thank you.
Okay, now we have Anatoly from Aloha College. I might have completely ruined that name. Okay.
Can I start? Hello, everyone. Today, I would like to talk about something that often gets overlooked. Throughout history, and especially nowadays, we often ignore the power, influence, and effect that something that we all have can create on the people and the world around us. That being our voice. Out of all the animals on the planet, humans are the only ones with a form of communication advanced enough to let us voice our opinions and interests, and the intelligence to actually have it make any sense. However, as I've already said, throughout most of history, this was forgotten. Whenever revolutions or protests or rallies occur, only the leaders of said events are credited, even though every piece of the puzzle was equally as important. It's easy to forget how much impact our words can have. Even Mahatma Gandhi, a key figure in fighting the oppressive colonial British regime, did not choose to be a leader. He had that role bestowed upon him. And, given the right circumstances, any of us could be a leader just like Gandhi. Using your voice and speaking out is important. Firstly, every voice has its own unique meaning. After all, there will never be another you. Every person has their own unique challenges, experiences, thoughts, and beliefs, and each one is equally as important, innovative, and worth hearing. Furthermore, whether we would like to admit it or not, our voices can influence other people. Whether it is a teacher to a student, a mentor to a mentee, or simply a friend to another friend, what we say can influence and change the opinions and thoughts of the people around us. Finally, and I know I've been saying the word important a lot today, but this is the most important factor, you cannot stay silent. This is because silence itself is what keeps unresolved problems unresolved. In other words, by not speaking up against something, you are actively making it worse by not trying to fight against it. I know this may sound surprising, but most authoritarian regimes secure power after being elected democratically by their population. This does not happen because a select few are responsible, but because the entire population is responsible for not speaking out when they saw that the regime secure more and more power. To end off, I would like you to remember, if you are silenced, resist it. If you are censored, oppose it. Because no matter what, your most powerful weapon is one that nobody can take away from you, your voice. Thank you.
And our last speech of the day is Hemin from the British School of Bucharest.
I think firstly I have to say thank you to COBIS and to BSB, of course, for letting me have this opportunity to speak here in front of all of you. Just to clarify something, I'll be the last person speaking today, so a lot of what I'm going to say has already been said. Please bear with me, there's not much I can do about that. I think when I first heard about this topic, Voices That Matter, I thought back to a week ago, exactly a week ago, where on behalf of BSB, we went with the British Embassy to the local Commonwealth War Cemetery, in Tankabest. There, I saw the grave of a 19-year-old RAF Flight Sergeant James Robert Velzian. Now, Sergeant Velzian was 19 in 1944, which means he was possibly 14, at most 15, when this war started. He had no say in what his government did for him. He had no say, and yet he gave the ultimate sacrifice for his nation. I think this links to something that we've all probably seen in our remembrance ceremonies, the tomb of the unknown warrior in Westminster Abbey. A grave fit for kings, for every single soldier that's given their life for their country. Now, I'm going to throw some statistics and possibly add a twist at the end. There were about 40 million deaths in World War I. About, by conservative estimate, 85 million deaths during World War II. And it's tough to think about these people as numbers. You can feel the atmosphere in this room, how heavy it is. And that's important. It's important that we recognize the gravity of these numbers. We recognize the gravity of every single one of those lives. And it's important to think about why certain voices didn't get to matter. And why, despite not having a voice, certain people still have the ability to affect change. I think as we look through history, there's famous figures that jump out at us. People like Socrates, who swore by the power of oration, refused to write things down, one of the greatest philosophers of the West. We have Joan of Arc, who rewrote the image of her gender and the spirits of a whole nation. We have people like Galileo, who reworked our scientific understanding, and despite being that he was punished for it. I think these people showcase the power of oration, the upheaval that it can cause, and the resilience it takes to stand with the truth. But we have to ask ourselves, what makes them matter? Why care about these voices? Is it the fact that they're relevant to us today? Do they speak to issues that we still experience today? Is it this West-centric lens through which we view history? To get back to this in a second, let's discuss the history of civilization. If we take the urban revolution as the start of human civilization around 4000 BCE, we've had 6,000 years as humans. Across these 6,000 years, there have been about 177 billion people. Think about it, 177 billion. And yet so few jump out at us as voices that matter, as people worth remembering, and the rest remain forgotten. If there were a garden of expression, it would be barren. But why is this? Why is silence the default throughout history? I think one way to look at this is to look at voices that are misused. We all know the names of dictators: Nero, Hitler, Mao. People that use their power, use their voices, use their ability to connect with people to do great harm to the world around them. And I think through examining the power of voices that don't get to matter, voices that are unfortunately misused, and the silence that surrounds humanity, we reach a simple conclusion. People that use their voices, people that speak up, whether it's for right or wrong, make an impact. They're remembered because they have an effect on the world around them. And I think throughout this leadership weekend, we've all been through a great deal of workshops. But one quote that really stuck out to me was, "Leadership is an action, not a position." And I think that really speaks to the spirit of voices at large. It's not just an honor. It's not just a privilege. It's not just a position of authority. It's a civic duty to be a leader. It's a civic duty, a moral responsibility to use your voice. To be completely candid with you, all of us in this room come from COBIS schools. A large number of us are leaders. A large number of us are aiming to go to some of the best universities in the world. And almost all of us are getting some of the best educations that we possibly could. Like it or not, we have a greater ability and a greater hand at effecting change than a lot of people in this world. And that's unfair. It's truly and deeply unfair. But it's only through recognizing, acknowledging, and utilizing this that we can do the best, and we can fulfill our duties to the entire world. So I think all of us, I hope all of you are together with me on this, that we need to be a voice that matters. We need to be a voice for the silenced, a voice against the corrupt, a voice for the oppressed, against those that oppress them. We need to be a voice for those who don't have one, against those who would misuse theirs. We need to be a voice that matters. Thank you so much.
That is the end of our various speeches. Okay, so can you just give me 5 minutes while I set up the projector, could you please come back into the room with your phones? You need to be able to scan a QR code. Okay? Everyone ready? I want your phones, I know, right?